Hey everybody, welcome to the Carbonite Jedi, where the Force will be with you always. Today I'm going to do a special type of video. I haven't ever done one of these before, where I recorded myself, live streaming myself, and so I found an article on ScreenRant.com, and it said the Mandalorian's entire Boba Fett arc has already been retconned. And I thought that I would go ahead and read through this article and discuss it a little bit and see what you thought. So it says, Din Djarin returned to the Book of Boba Fett, but now the Mandalorian Season 3's premiere has completely retconned Mando's arc in the spin-off series. And I don't really see that, but let's get through the article. And it shows Din Djarin holding the Darksaber and the armor. And it says, Mandalorian Season 3 has retconned Din Djarin's entire The Book of Boba Fett arc. Though a Mandalorian cameo in The Book of Boba Fett was expected, it was surprising to see Mando receive that much screen time in a show about Boba Fett. And I agree, because he basically got 3 episodes out of a seven episode series for The Book of Boba Fett. And it was basically Mando season 2.5, I guess. So it says, more than stealing the spotlight from Star Wars original bounty hunter, Mando and Grogu's roles in the spin-off series were unexpectedly tied to events that would have worked much better in The Mandalorian Season 3. And I do have to agree with that too. I think that those 3 episodes where they find Luke and Grogu's learning the Force, it felt a little bit rushed. They could have probably put it in season 3 to start off with and had it expanded to where it would have felt more full instead of rushed. Grogu's reunion with the Mandalorian, for example, was way too big of an event to be placed outside of the character's actual show, like I just said. Likewise, having Din learn the history and responsibility tied with wielding the Darksaber could have been saved for The Mandalorian Season 3. The biggest continuity problem regarding The Mandalorian and Boba Fett, however, involves Din Djarin and the Armorer. Okay, let's see what they say. It says, The Mandalorian Season 3 flips Din Djarin and the Armorer's roles. The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, The Apostate, flipped the dynamic between Din Djarin and the Armorer presented in the Book of Boba Fett. During Boba Fett, Episode 5, which was very much The Mandalorian Season 2.5, which I said, placed in another show, Din Djarin reunited with the Armorer for the first time after removing his helmet twice during the events of The Mandalorian Season 2. Raised in a Mandalorian cult in which removing your helmet in front of others is absolutely forbidden, Din had no choice but to confess to the Armorer that what he had done. In Boba Fett, the Armorer specifically tells Din to go to Mandalore's living waters to seek atonement. Okay, so that's basically the whole part of Season 3 is... what we've seen in the trailer is him trying to get to Mandalore so he can bathe in these waters. The problem is that in the Book of Boba Fett, Din Djarin said that he could not go to Mandalore, and it was up to the Armorer to reinforce that this was the only way Mando could restore his honor and earn his place back among his peers. However, in The Mandalorian Season 3, Mando is the one telling the Armorer that he needs to go to Mandalore, with the latter now opposing the idea. A significant Boba Fett retcon, Din and the Armorer's conversation in The Mandalorian Season 3's premiere completely inverts the relationship, as Mando is now in the position of agency. I don't see why it retconned it. That's kind of nonsense right there. It's been a year basically between the end of Boba Fett and Season 3, and people's ideas and thoughts can change. I mean, it doesn't really like negate the whole Boba Fett the Book of Boba Fett three shows at all. Ridiculous. Why has The Mandalorian Season 3 retconned the Boba Fett arc? Oh, no. The decision to have Mando and Grogu's story continue in the Book of Boba Fett prior to The Mandalorian Season 3 is proving to be a confusing one. I think it could be confusing to some people. It was a little confusing to me when I saw it, but I really enjoyed it in the Book of Boba Fett. I think that... let me just go ahead and read. Resolving the biggest, The Mandalorian Season 2 cliffhanger before the show even returned for a Season 3 and a spin-off series hardly made sense, as not everyone who watches The Mandalorian would necessarily watch the Book of Boba Fett. The result is The Mandalorian Season 3 either having to recap and explain things from Boba Fett, which would be a good idea, with exposition dialogue, or simply retconning and ignoring moments from the spin-off Star Wars TV show. And I don't think they should do that. Mando and the armor's dynamic falls into the second, and I don't think that. I think it's nitpicking, very much nitpicking. From a narrative standpoint, having the main character refuse to go on a quest that he absolutely needs to embrace for the story to progress does not work in the long term. Din Djarin has to go to Mandalore looking for redemption for the Mandalorian Season 3's story to work, which he is. If you look at the trailer, he's going there, which is why it is more interesting for Mando to accept his quest and then find some sort of obstacle. Probably he will. Neither the Armorer nor Bo-Katan is particularly fond of Din Djarin. I think the Armorer's disappointed. I don't think she doesn't like him. I think she's disappointed that he took his helmet off. And I think that if he goes and bathes in the living water of Mandalore, then he will be in her good graces. But Bo-Katan is completely understandable because Din Djarin bogarted the Darksaber from her. Not on purpose, but he did. Bo-Katan is not particularly fond of Din Djarin and his journey, which adds to the idea that Mando and Grogu cannot trust many people in the Star Wars galaxy. Not really. They can't. And then here it talks about Bo-Katan following the Mandalore Season 3 premiere. The entire journey of Mandalore's Bo-Katan cries has been undone and flipped on its head. Has it? I think this article is really like grasping straws. I mean, there's a little bit of truth to it, but it's just they're blowing it out of proportion. Following the Mandalorian Season 3's premiere episode, the development and journey of Bo-Katan cries Katie Sackhoff has been undone and completely flipped. She can get redemption. Becoming well and truly broken thanks to the aftermath of the Mandalorian Season 2, Bo-Katan's reunion with Din Djarin, Pedro Pascal, and Grogu isn't exactly a happy one. Instead, Bo-Katan is very much compromised in the Mandalorian Season 3. She's just very disappointed and depressed because she doesn't have the Darksaber. In The Mandalorian Season 2, Din Djarin secured Bo-Katan's help to rescue Grogu from the Imperials, offering her Night Owls as support. Kryze agreed to help in exchange for the Darksaber in Moff Gideon's possession. The legendary blade once wielded by Bo-Katan herself. Believing in its ability to unite the fractured clans of Mandalore, Bo-Katan was clearly distressed by Djarin's inadvertent claim to the blade by defeating Gideon. As a result, The Mandalorian Season 3 has now flipped her arc regarding her role as a key leader of Mandalore. As seen in The Mandalorian Season 2, Bo-Katan Kryze had been amassing forces to reclaim Mandalore and unite the various clans again once the region of Mandalore, before the Empire's Purge, known as the Night of a Thousand Tears, Bo-Katan was still determined to lead and fight for her people despite the loss of their homeworld. However, she still required the Darksaber, a major symbol of authority in Mandalorian culture. While she once wielded the legendary blade, it was confirmed in the Book of Boba Fett that Bo-Katan never earned the Darksaber as its lore requires, which I was trying to say earlier. Instead, it was given to her by Sabine Wren, rather than being won in combat. As such, this is why Din Djarin claiming the Darksaber in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale was so problematic for Bo-Katan and her mission to restore Mandalore. Reclaiming the Darksaber properly would have given Bo-Katan the right to lead, but also redemption in the eyes of her people. And then it talks about sitting in an empty castle in the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, things are looking rather bleak for Bo-Katan cries. When Din Djarin arrives with Grogu and asks about the forces she intended to use to reclaim the homeworld of Mandalore, Bo-Katan admits they all left, with many becoming mercenaries. Without the Darksaber, Bo-Katan's authority means very little to her fellow Mandalorians. Despite telling Din Djarin and Grogu to leave her, it's doubtful that Bo-Katan's development is over after just one episode, which I sure hope so, because that'd be pretty lame to leave her like that. That being said, it's remarkable that her arc that began during the Clone Wars and saw her becoming such a capable Mandalorian leader has now been unraveled. Naturally devastated, it's unknown what Bo-Katan's next moves will be going forward. However, she is expected to have an ongoing role in the rest of Season 3, as Sackhoff is credited with a starring role alongside Pedro Pascal, whose Din Djarin is headed for the ruins of Mandalore to seek redemption of his own, having broken his clan's creed by removing his helmet. So, that being said, do you think the Mandalorian's entire Boba Fett arc has been retconned? No, I don't. I think over time things change, things happen, and they talked about the armor and Din Djarin flipping roles. Well, it's such a minute part and so nitpicky. I mean, he's got to go regardless. If he's not a Mandalorian. So, in his eyes, and it seems like that is like the number one thing for Din Djarin is to be a Mandalorian. So he's got to go, and it seems like he is going to go. So, all right, everybody, I want to know what you thought about this article. If the Mandalorian's entire Boba Fett arc has been retconned or should be retconned, or do you believe, like me, that it's such a minuscule and a minute thing? Do you agree with the opinions of this article? Start leaving your comments below right now. We can discuss it together. Well, that's it for this video, but I'll be back more with Star Wars and other sci-fi content and some Black Series unboxings. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, this is the Carbonite Jedi, where the Force will be with you always. Thank you so much for watching.